Fernando Botero is a Colombian artist, active well into his 80s, having spent much of his life and career in Paris. And typically he's known for these inflated bodies that tend to populate either art historical or domestic scenes. Now, this has been his style for quite some time, until we get to around 2005. At which point he will see and react with horror to the news reports and photographs of the humiliation and torture of Iraqi prisoners in the hands of American military personnel in the prison at Abu Ghraib. In reaction to this, he creates a series, one of which is Abu Ghraib 46, which we see here. And again, these are massive pieces meant to call attention to these horrific issues that are going on. Now, as we look at the piece itself, you'll notice that again we have the trademark larger-than-life inflated bodies. But they are remarkably different from his usual tranquil domestic subjects. They're suffering. They're beaten. They're tortured. You can't look at this and see this as anything but horror. Anything but outrage. As we look at, we see the bloodied bodies, the marks on the flesh, a man in the background vomiting on the floor, the blood-soaked t-shirt, the men tied, either their hands or their ankles or both. And you'll notice the buttocks of the man in the front are discolored, giving us a sense of possible sexual torture going on with these people as well. And at the time in 2005 that these are being put out there, there's still a lot of speculation of what happened, what sort of tortures were brought upon these prisoners. Now, when we look at that piece, as I said, it's part of a larger series. We're just focusing on number 46, but we see other images that will take place, all with the same trademark style, all with the same sense of horror and outrage about what has happened. In some cases, dogs attacking prisoners. In some cases, guards urinating on prisoners or prisoners being put into women's clothing. And this is comparable again to a lot of those war images that we've seen in the past. Guernica, which I've brought up a number of times, the hanging tree from the Miseries of War, the 5th of May by Goya, all of them similar ideas, trying to call our attention to the horrible atrocities that go along with war. These are the artists trying to encourage us not to partake, because if they can speak to the public and get this public to stand up and say, we do not support this war, then they hope that the public can put pressure on the politicians. Now, the image of Abu Ghraib 46 has been compared to images of saintly martyrdom going back to the Renaissance, the medieval, and even earlier. We see this sense of horror and suffering. There's this religious element that comes over it. And of course, there would be a religious element because the guards are primarily going to be Western and the prisoners are primarily going to be Iraqi, which means they're probably going to be Muslim. And we're seeing that through this piece. This is a connection that's frequently made. The physical and mental torture being compared to the Passion of Christ and the martyrdom of saints. Now, the painting is not intended, according to Botero, as an anti-American sentiment. Rather, a broad condemnation of cruelty and violation of the Geneva Conventions. He has refused to profit from the sale of the pieces and has donated them to museums. Many, including Abu Ghraib 46, are gifts to the University of California's Berkeley Art Museum on the condition that they forever remain on display. These pieces are both political but also social commentaries, asking us how people, average human beings, can commit acts of evil such as this, but also asking us about the political environment that leads to this. And let me point out that Abu Ghraib 46 is not a classic painting. This is not intended as a piece for sale. This is not intended to beautify. This is more painting as conceptual art. A painting that starts a conversation.